Has anybody been to Walemania before?
Walemania, you know what I'm saying?
We want the show! We want the show! I got the hottest ticket again!
Yo, what's up, good people? DJ Danny Ocean, 3NT Wrestling is in the building. Look, we got a very special guest on the show today. First, I got to introduce the broskies. I got Von Casey, Matthew Wilson. What's going on, fellas?
What's up?
Boys, it's that time of year. So it's holiday season for us. It's WrestleMania season. WrestleMania 40 is right around the corner. And of course, the biggest party to kick off WrestleMania season every year is Walemania. And we got a special guest in the building right now to talk about Walemania. It's the curator of Walemania, Kazeem. Kaz, what's good, my boy?
I'm doing good, fellas. How you guys doing, man? Appreciate you having me here. Thank you.
No, I appreciate you coming along. Like I said, I know you're a busy man. We're going to get right into it. We got to talk about Walemania, man. It's looking special this year, brother. It's looking special.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be special. This is the one that you want to be at. I'll just say that. Obviously, we've been doing this for 9 years. It would have been our 10th anniversary if it wasn't for COVID, but we had to take the year off, and thankfully, Foot Locker kind of kept us afloat during the times we couldn't necessarily be together. But this is the 9th time we're doing this. Last year I think was extremely special, right? Like I think in the past 3 years, from New York to Dallas to LA, and now to Philadelphia, I think we've really caught like a whole new level of momentum, just as far as like what we wanted this thing to be, not just for wrestling fans, but just for people that are just fans of culture, of a good time, of just me. I've always just loved bringing people from different walks of life together for specific things that people love. And I always thought the coolest thing you could ever do is be passionate about something that you really like. And that's what Walemania is all about, man. If you're a big hip hop head, if you want to show your kicks off, if you want to watch wrestling, if you want to, kick it with some good looking women, like if you want to just party, like it's just a good vibe all the way around. But ultimately, it's a thank you. It's a thank you to the incredible talent that put their bodies on the line week in and week out, and that's what this started as. And we are going to continue that tradition this year in the biggest way we could possibly do it.
That's awesome. So how did you link up with Wale? Like how did you come up with the idea for the first Walemania? How did this come about?
Well, I've known Wale, gosh, going on, I want to say 15 years now, close to know it, man. I've known him ever since I was a junior in college, and I was working at the Source magazine as a intern and writer. And, obviously, when you're an intern trying to break in the music writing industry, you don't get the big assignments. You don't get to go watch Jay-Z's and T.I.'s and Eminem's and Dr. Dre's at that point. So, back that time, that was the blog era. So that was basically the beat that I captured on my own, for the magazine at least. And Wale was one of the good friends that I sort of got close with as a subject. I know he came and performed at my school when I was a junior, and about 2 years later, I did a feature story on him when not attention deficit, when Ambition was about to come out. And it was one of those things where we always kind of like talked on Twitter. We always talked on social media. I had little one-off interviews with him on like red carpets and stuff like that. But this article was like the first time we got like the Step Brothers treatment, where it was like, did we just become best friends? Like after like spending after
Yep.
spending like 3 days together, and it was like, yep, like we just had too much in common. We're both Nigerian, we both have immigrant parents, we both have, big into sports, big into wrestling, big into sneakers, big into hip hop, big into that's just it was just, we immediately became very close friends. And I wish I could take the credit for starting Walemania as it was, but that has to go to a man by the name of Court Bauer. And Court Bauer was a guy who is the CEO of MLW, and he was a former WWE creative. And he was kind of one of the first people to kind of get it kicked off. Like, yo, man, like, what if we did something um, during WrestleMania weekend where it was like a party? Like, obviously, it was Wale's idea, just as far as like doing an event. And as our friendship grew, we would go to like All-Star weekends and Super Bowls and Grammys and all this type of events. And us being wrestling fans, we were always like, man, like it would be really dope if like wrestling fans had something like this. Like if WrestleMania weekend had like events that was like that was just a vibe. That wasn't just going to another independent show or going to an autograph signing or anything like that. Like where's the good vibes at? And that's where Wale Mania was sort of born. And it started off in San Jose, WrestleMania 31, when Court got us all together and put together an incredible sort of like party at this lounge, which we had Scott Hall, rest in peace. Rey Mysterio came through. Chris Hero, Dave Meltzer,
That's fire.
Samoa Joe, Jeff Hardy, just Conan, obviously, like all those guys. And now it's just sort of evolved into a variety show slash concert slash fan fest slash party basically. So just the evolution of it, all credit has to go through obviously my friendship with Wale, but this doesn't get off the ground without Court Bauer, so always big shouts to him.
That's dope. That's dope. So, now I didn't mention earlier, you're a former WWE writer, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
How did that, like, is that something you aspired to do, or did that just kind of fall in your lap?
I would say it kind of fell into my lap. So, I mean, I had lots of experience before I got to WWE. I worked on a couple of shows on MTV and MTV2 with Charlemagne the God and Desus and Mero and all these other guys
Okay.
as talent and as a writer. I had, did some TV work with Bleacher Report where I was a writer for a show called No Script with Marshawn Lynch. And I worked on a couple of other shows as well. I mean, God rest her soul, Jazz Waters. She brought me on to a set for a James Davis show that was, on Comedy Central for a while. That was a sketch show. And, once I had a time to really get an opportunity to, do other things at one point in my life, I saw a job opening for, WWE. I think I want to say it was like digital content director. Basically, what I was already doing at like Bleacher Report or The Source or all the bloggers. You know what I mean? You go and get these digital content jobs where you just kind of like maintain the content and the interviews and all that type of stuff. So I apply for that. And the HR calls me because WWE HR is extremely thorough. And they're like, yo, we love you, but like, you have a lot of experience. A lot of people here know you, right? Like, so like I was already doing Wrestle Rap podcast at that time. I had interviewed a ton of wrestlers already, great friendships with folks in the New Day and, Apollo Crews and Ricochet and tons of NXT guys. Like, so they all kind of, once they did their, they're digging around and saw my socials and saw how many of their talent already followed me and stuff like that. They were like, we could give you this, I think it would be great for this digital content job, but like, if you were to do anything in WWE, what would it be? I was like, damn, that's a hell of a question. I was like, well, I'd love to be
World champion.
on court.
Right, right.
I'd love to be
Give me
like
the belt.
talent. Like, I'd love to do something, be in my Michael Cole bag one of these days, or I'd love to help write the show. And literally, as I said, help write the show, she's like, great. Come here on Tuesday. You'll meet with Raj, who you guys know as Rajan Singh, who was the head of creative at the time, and I interviewed with him. Right after that, interviewed with the Road Dogg Jesse James, and we kind of hit it off immediately. And they were like, "Could you be in Chicago Saturday?" And I
That's
was like,
fire.
"Yeah." And then it was literally that week I was at Money in the Bank in Chicago as a creative writer on the team,
Wow.
and
That's crazy.
it was obviously there's tons of writers and writing is a big part of the job as far as creative, but you're essentially producing them as well. So the fact that I had already these established relationships with a lot of the talent on the team sort of helped him out as far as, well, helped me out, I would say, as far as being brought on the road so quickly. So I would say it kind of fell into my lap, but it was something that always in the back of my head as far as like, man, like it would be really fun to. I think we all sort of fantasy book. We all,
Oh,
put our own stories together, and it was like, hey, you want to do that for real? And I was like, sure, all right, let's try.
yeah. That's
Great
what's up.
time.
I'm gonna let the other guys ask you questions, but I'm curious. I've always wondered: is there any notable segment that might have been on TV that you wrote that we might have seen?
There's a couple, man. I always get a lot of love for the Seattle segment with Kevin Owens
And Elias?
and Elias when they got
Wow.
booed out of the building for shitting on the San Antonio, the
Supersonics.
Seattle Supersonics, right?
Oh man.
And we were getting ready to go for Super Showdown with Bobby Lashley and Cena versus Owens and Elias. And Elias isn't the biggest basketball head, but if you could be surprised by that. And I was basically like, yo, you should say something along the lines of, uh, you know, uh, John Cena and Bobby Lashley teaming up, that doesn't really make sense. It's almost like Seattle having a basketball team. There's no point. And as soon as, and mind you, I had no idea. I had no idea that the Key Arena, I think, was like, this is like one of the last events in the Key Arena, right?
Oh
Like,
wow.
so it was a very tenuous time in Seattle. So as soon as Elias said that, like, booze, just
That was one of
booze and booze and booze, and they
them.
just booed him out of the building, and it was great TV. I still have wishes about how that segment would have went because I think Leo could have came in, and in a Gary Payton jersey, and the place would have blew the roof off,
Oh yeah.
stuff like that.
Oh
But
yeah.
there was some also great moments, man. I got to do a lot of fun stuff with the New Day. They were awesome. I think my favorite segment I did with the New Day was my first one, which was the Five Timers Club segment with Booker T, and
Oh
then
wow.
we got to bring Booker T out in Toronto and just really have fun and do spinneroonies and make fun of Saxton and make fun of E, and like it was really really fun. Um, man, lots of stuff that I really enjoyed from that time. But as far as like tag team division is concerned, doing getting like a front row seat to like the birth of the man Becky Lynch, like going from
Mhm.
like Becky Lynch being this underdog to like this uber star. That was pretty awesome. I mean, man, yeah, just lots of lots of great moments back there, man.
Now,
I would say another one that I think was pretty memorable, and it was memorable for the reasons that I hate talking about, but I remember the most nervous I ever was the day Roman announced to the world that he had leukemia. I
mm,
had this segment right after that, and it was with Paul Heyman, who I love dearly. Paul Heyman is like my sensei when it was back there. He was the one person backstage that would like teach me how to make TV. Like, this is
mm,
why we need to make these times. This is why we need to do. Like, he gave me a reason for like each, like, why things were happening.
a
I
real
think
mentor.
obviously a lot of people are just worried about doing their jobs, which is completely fair. And there were definitely a lot of helpful people, but Paul was definitely one of my biggest my biggest supporters as far as like just teach me how to make wrestling television and why certain things are done the way they're done. I wouldn't have gotten very far without him and the several other people back there. But basically, nobody knew he was about to announce that he has leukemia, right? So we get
Oh,
the script and it just says Roman kicks off the show with an announcement. And we knew all day long that Roman was going to kick off the show, but nobody knew what he was going to talk about. So I'm sitting here with Paul. I'm like, yo, Paul, like, what do we, the world champion's going out there, and Paul doesn't know. So I'm sticking with Paul all day long, and then he goes into the office with Hunter and Sean. I don't even think Vince was there that day, but like Hunter and Sean was running the show. And if something's kayfabe, nobody's gonna know. Like they don't want shit to leak out. They don't want nothing happening. So like if it's kayfabe, it's kayfabe. So Heyman was like, goes into the room. I'm sitting outside the door waiting for Heyman to come out. And then he closes the door, and I'll never forget the look on his face. And he was like, "Don't worry, I'll take care of you." So I'm sitting there on the headset, like watching it all happen, and then just watching just the wave of emotion just go through the crowd, go through everybody, seeing Roman coming out of the, coming into the gorilla, the entire locker room's there to hug him and all this stuff. And classic Roman, he's like, "Guys, I'm not dying. I'm gonna be fine." And da, 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 da. And he was like, and he was.
Yeah.
Everybody was scared to death. And
Yeah.
you hear somebody has leukemia and they came back
All right.
right when you're the world champion, the universal champion at the time, and he has to forfeit the title. And God, I think we had just brought the Shield back too. Like it was just the worst timing possible. But I'll never forget like how much Paul had my back and would always just make sure I never got heat and never got in trouble, and
That's
just
dope.
knew I had a lot of talent and good ideas, and he always looked out for me. So lots of good memories there.
Fellas, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like he misses it. Does he miss it? It sounds
It
like
sounds like a bit, yeah, right?
Nah, I'll say this, man. I will say this. I love the time there. I love the people there. Um, and I wouldn't say I miss it. It was a different time of my life. I ain't had no kids. I
oh,
was
okay.
single. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I was traveling the world every single week.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's a different life. It's a lifestyle change if
Right.
you're on the road with WWE. So, I mean, I love it. Like if they called back, I definitely wouldn't hang up immediately. I'd hear them out. But it's definitely not something. Even then, I would say it is an adjustment for anybody, especially if you're on the writing team. Like the writing, the creative writers, the people who help put the shows together night in and night out, week in and week out, are some of the most unselfish, creative, thankless people you could ever really come across. And I'm sure it's much different now because it's a different regime, and you're not doing Raw on Monday, SmackDown on Tuesday, pay-per-views Sunday. You know what I mean? There's probably more time to be home and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say I miss it, but I'm just definitely one of those people that like don't have bad memories of being
Right.
on creative. Like a lot of times you'll hear stories about folks in creative and you hear horror stories about it, which exist, which are definitely there, but I enjoyed my time there. Like I never really got into it with a lot of people. I felt like I did a lot of good work with the town. The town still clearly likes me and likes working with me in any aspect. And I think I found like a good sort of way to still sort of be in the WWE wrestling fam without having to be on the road 300 days a
Right.
year. You know what I'm saying?
That's
So
what's up.
I like where I'm at right now for sure.
I got you. Malik, you got something you want to ask, brother?
Yeah, man. I was watching you on Knicks Fan TV. Shout out to CP the franchise. I
Shout
know
out
you're a huge
CP, it's
Knicks
my
fan.
guy.
I'm gonna let Vaughn get his stuff off before I kind of ask you some Knicks questions. But
I'm
Yeah.
also a Knicks fan, so go ahead with the next questions, bro.
okay, no,
Hey.
no, no
Yes.
doubt, no doubt.
Yeah.
But I was hearing you talk about like the gratitude you have for the projects that you've done and what you feel. Is there any project that you've done that holds like a special place in your heart?
Oh man, it's a good question. Um, Is there any project that holds a special place in my heart? I'll always have, I'm a magazine baby, so like getting to create Stash was always, you know, big for me. Doing a coffee table book with people that went on to become major stars like Pete Davidson, Wiz Khalifa, Casey Veggies, Kerry Champion. You know what I mean? High quality work that people still come up to me to this day like, yo, I still have that book. I bought that book. You know what I mean? And that was something that I edited from the rooter to the tutor. So, and just knowing where content is going and technology is going, I always felt proud that I could make something that people can hold and, like give to people that isn't just digital, which I love. But man, Walemania is special in itself as well because I always felt like that's just a combination of all of my interests with working with some of my best friends who happen to be some of the most talented people on the planet that all are like-minded in that way. So I mean that always going to hold a special place in my heart. Doing MSGPM with Monica McNutt during the pandemic, and then coming out of the pandemic and getting to really see and touch and feel Knicks fans again, and sort of welcome them back. Out of the craziness that was the beginning of the 2020s is always going to feel special to me. Like being in the Garden Studio and Knicks fans finally got to come back outside, and we saw those side talk, moments happening right in front of us, like banging on the window. Those are memories that you live with forever. I mean, the Palooza days I hold special to my heart, like doing Duce Palooza and Henny Palooza, and traveling the world with your friends, putting on rock concerts, basically. Like that's nothing. There's I always say I don't regret my 20s because I felt like I lived them 5 different times, and it was always awesome. So I got several, man. I got several, and I'm always proud of them. And I always say I would, if it's not something I would do for free, I'm probably not going to do it. And that's kind of the rule I sort of live by, like just something that I love, as something that speaks to my core that doesn't feel forced or fake.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you specifically about like Walemania. Um, so you mentioned you and Wale had like all of these things in common, from sneakers to interest in sports. What was it that specifically drew both of you to we're going to make this a wrestling event?
Well, I would say, you got to remember when we first became like marks, I would say like outward, front facing marks, like the independent scene was so different that we were fans and friends of so many people that we just wish got a shot at the big show. Not Paul White, the big show. I mean,
Yeah.
like a shot at like I like being on TV, man. And a big thing with Wale is he's one of the most selfless people you'll ever meet. And he has such a gift for foresight. He has such a gift for, seeing things before people can really see it. And it comes through in his music. Look at his track record. All of his biggest records are with artists that before they became uber duper massive,
Hmm.
right? You go through Rihanna, Dua Lipa, Lady Gaga, like it's just
Miguel.
J. Cole, Miguel, like it just he has an eye and ear for talent, and he had the same thing with that for wrestling. So I mean, you gotta remember during the independent scene, he would spend thousands of dollars to be ringside at WrestleMania, but at that same weekend, we're going to some hole in the wall bar, hole in the wall you know community center to watch Ricochet wrestle, or watch Uha Nation wrestle, or watch Rich Swann or Moose, or like all these guys that really didn't have huge names yet, but we were just fans of. We were like, how are these
Right.
guys not seeing how great these guys are, And Wale used a lot of you know, uh, his assets, his leverage, his fame to get people noticed and get people, on the mark. And he still does that to this day. You know what I mean? Like he's, I wouldn't know like he introduced me to Jade Cargill, and for about a year and some change, I got to like help manage Jade Cargill and some of her like off the out of the ring sort of endeavors as well. And she remains a great friend to this day, even though she's in WWE now and has tons of talented people helping her out. But it's hard to say where if Apollo Crews gets a look if it's not for Wale. Hard to say if Ricochet, even though Ricochet was also a massive, massive independent star already, you know, he was tweeting about this guy all the time and would talk to Mark Henry about him all the time. And Mark Henry was the guy to get, stuff towards. And there's other people. But I would say why we thought wrestling was the thing for us to do was because nobody was doing it yet. Like there wasn't really, a thing that we could create that is uniquely ours, uniquely cultural. And I know wrestling fans. I know what who weren't, wrestling fans as well, and the reasons why. And I think for a long time there was very much a specific sort of lens in which wrestling fans are viewed out of, where I'm just like, like wrestling fans aren't just these type of people. They also like
Yeah.
X, Y, Z, this, that, and the third. Like
Yeah.
it's and Walemania is proof positive of that, man. You just look at the people that pull up to it, and you look at that, it reflects a lot of the talent now. So, when you go and see the people who came to Walemanias in years past and see how big of stars they became, I don't think it's a coincidence that, we all kind of saw the same thing. Like, not only is the look of the fan changing, the look of the talent is changing too. Like there's more superstar black talent,
Yes.
people of color,
Yes.
non-white folks on the top of WWE now more than ever. And, that's just a reflection of what people like. And I think Wale Mania, I don't want to say Wale Mania takes a ton of credit for that. It shouldn't. But I do think it was one of the first places that sort of housed a lot of these people to be like, hey, man, like, here's this thing that we do every year. And I think people, talent specifically, benefited from it as well. Like even the folks that weren't even wrestling that weekend at least had something to get people to talk about them. You know what I mean? Like going into the week. So I would say that's probably why. Yeah.
Okay, going into WrestleMania, looking at the state of wrestling, like as it is, like now, like we're hearing The Rock when he does his promos, him being back, him saying wrestling is cool again, and I'm having a whole bunch of people who weren't watching wrestling for a while that have now come back. You know what I'm saying? Because The Rock is kind of bringing that attitude era type feel. In your opinion, what's the impact of The Rock being back and coming to WrestleMania this year, and how do you feel like that'll affect Walemania? Like, will this be like the biggest Walemania that we've ever seen due to the popularity that the WWE currently holds?
I'd say that's a safe bet. I'd say that's a safe bet. Obviously, The Rock is one of the biggest stars on planet Earth. Like anything he lends itself to, and that's kind of always been the thing with The Rock, right? Like as big as he's gotten, at the end of the day, the dude's a professional wrestler. So whenever he would come back, people would feel the repercussions of that popularity. Now, obviously, I think the timing couldn't have been better because I do think the birth of AEW, the quality of WWE, NXT, like every sort of arm of professional wrestling has been very strong. So I think The Rock's involvement only helps that. And he's not, I think what makes this return different from past returns is I don't think he's going anywhere. Like, yeah, he'll go out to do movies and do stuff, but now he's got real skin in the game. He's on the board of directors. He owns all of his trademarks again. Like he has real financial, you know, benefits to the success of not just professional wrestling, but specifically WWE. You know what I mean? Like he's almost the new Vince if you look at it in a specific sort of way. So I think it's really going to be the start of a new sort of frontier for pro wrestling because you got to think about it. This is the first WrestleMania we're going to with no McMahon involvement. This is the first WrestleMania we're going to with, The Rock is back, and you have a champion who is starting to become mainstream, and you have a challenger who has all the street cred of the wrestling nerds, but is also a dude that can wear the hell out of a suit and looks like a movie star in his own right and has a compelling real life story that makes people want to get behind him, which you probably only get every 10 years. You got it with Daniel Bryan maybe 10 years ago. You got it with Kofi. You got it with Eddie Guerrero, and you got it with Shawn Michaels. And, it's
Every
rare that you
decade.
get every decade you get like these people that the fans want to see be champions. So I just think the convergence of everything couldn't have been at a better time for The Rock to come back.
Real quick, just because I'm curious of what you think about it. Who do you think Cody is finishing that story this year?
Here we go. Daniel, look.
Hey, listen, I
Here
love
come
Cody.
Dan. Here come
I
Dan.
wanna
Yo,
hear
you
that.
say that every time that you
I
love
wanna hear
Cody.
that, man.
I'm just asking. I can't ask a question. It's an interview.
I'm a Cody fan, man, and I don't know. I think around this time, well, I want to say around February last year, January last year, when everybody was all like, "Yeah, Cody's gonna finish the story." That's when I was like, "He's definitely not winning." I was like, I got the feeling like he's that like he ain't been through no hard times. He ain't really gone through anything real. Like the money's in the chase. The money is in the chase, and they've proven it. The fact that Cody didn't win last year has only made the intrigue for this year even that much higher. If he won last year, there'd be no intrigue into this main event. I don't believe. I think, obviously you could have had him lose the title within the year and then have him run it back and as trying to become a champion again. I think WWE played it completely perfectly. And now, even with all of these outer elements that pretty much tell you, hey, we're getting ready to make Cody that guy. There's still that thing in the back of your head that's like, I don't know. I don't know.
For sure. Yeah.
So it's not like it's such a unique circumstance, right? Like Cody Rhodes is so ready to be the new John Cena of this company.
Yeah.
He is ready to be the guy who does all the make a wishes, kisses the babies, shakes the hands. He is that guy. However, Roman is a box office legitimate needle mover that is in his prime. He's not over the hill. He's not too young. There is no reason to shoo Roman away, is what I'm saying. And the fact that he is still as bankable as a star that WWE has had in so many years makes you wonder, even though my wrestling brain tells me Cody is beating this man for the world title under bloodline rules against all the odds in Rocky's hometown and feel like everything is telling you that this dude is gonna, come out to eye the tiger and really do some deep defeat the odds sort of stuff. My business mind kind of tells me that Rock and Roman match still gotta happen.
It
Is it
does.
gonna be with the title or is it not?
Yeah.
There's ways to get it there. So I don't know, man. If you ask me to put money on it, I'd say Cody wins. But boy, if he doesn't, it would be I think there'd be a lot more intrigue if he doesn't win.
Definitely.
There'd
You
be
think
so
so?
much more intrigue.
You think
Yeah.
people would be? Well, you think they could draw it out for another year?
I don't think you draw it out for another year if he loses. I think you probably make it happen at SummerSlam or something, or you make it happen sooner than that. Or you could even, I've always thought like a cool thing to do would have the title change at the Raw after WrestleMania, which would be madness. But
Insane.
I just get that feeling it's Cody's time, but I've been wrong before. That's what I'm saying.
All right, what you got, Malik? We're gonna wrap it up here in a second. What you got, Malik?
Oh,
It's
snap.
Knicks
All
time.
right, bet. It's Knicks
It's
time.
Knicks time.
Okay.
It's Knicks time,
Okay,
baby.
Kaz. Okay. All right. So look, I'm a big fan of Jalen Brunson. Me personally, I watch my TV I watch every Knicks game.
Me too.
I think he's one of the most. I don't want to say disrespected because he's starting to get his sign, but I hear a lot of people try to discredit Jalen Brunson as a potential superstar. Going from a 16-point per game player to now a 27-point per game player and a leader of the Knicks. What has been his impact as far as how you feel of what Jalen Brunson has meant to the Knicks so far?
I think Jalen Brunson has been the most important free agent acquisition in Knicks history. Like
He's
he's the
spitting.
guy who absolutely changed the culture, the fortunes of this team. And you got him at a time where nobody was really in the bidding war for him. You kind of got him on a discount. You got him with a chip on the shoulder. I'll never forget the day of his press conference when they signed him. He had a book bag on, socks, and flip flops. Like
Yup.
I'm like, that's my franchise point guard. Like
Right
he
there.
came here ready to work. And I think now, I think very recently, we're starting to get the Jalen Brunson superstar soft launch rollout, right? Like,
Yep.
I think
Finally,
it
yep.
started with the podcast. Obviously, I think Julius Randle getting hurt is unfortunate, but it really put
Definitely
the
helps.
spotlight on Brunson, and
Yep.
he's had so many moments since February where the Knicks very much could have fell off a cliff. Like we see what the Sixers have been without Joel Embiid,
hmm Good comp.
but Jalen Brunson has, and obviously Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo, OG Anunoby, when he's been healthy, have all contributed. But this has been Brunson's show, and Brunson has absolutely, done more than hold the fort down. He's continued to make them a force. So I think the soft launch into his superstardom is happening right now. The podcast is doing well. We got him doing the AT&T commercials. He's getting, I think the last thing, because I think basketball fans are very feeble-minded. Basketball is more complicated than I think people give it credit for, and I think simple things show people you're a superstar. And I think by this time next year, Jalen Brunson will probably be like on the cover of 2K,
Mm,
probably have like a Nike signature shoe. Like, I think a lot of people probably, miss they underestimate how important a star in New York is. And I think those massive brands are salivating at the fact that Brunson is a likable superstar in New York City. So I think, the numbers have backed it up. The Knicks play this year has backed it up. I think it's going to take a couple of those off the court things, like going on Jimmy Fallon, Draymond Green bigging you up on the podcast, outplaying Stephen Curry on national television, hitting these buzzer beaters. Like, all these moments are going to add up to a hell of a highlight reel to begin next year when this dude is a bona fide superstar and you can't just have him sneak up on you like that. So, massive Brunson fan. I think he's not just the most important free agent signing in Knicks history, but probably one of the most consequential free agent signings in the NBA. As far as, like, you could put it up there with like LeBron going to the Heat, KD going to the Warriors, all that stuff. Like, Brunson is in that class. That's how good he's been.
So in
Yeah.
saying all that, do you
I fall into a category of Knicks fans called that people like to call delusional. Uh, so my question for you is, how soon are we getting that Jalen Brunson statue outside of MSG?
I'll tell you this. I'll tell you this. He's on his way. I wouldn't say statue. He's on his way. I truly believe he's going to be the last person in New York history to wear number 11. I think he's going to be,
Yeah.
a guy that, even if they don't go all the way, has already established himself as the most popular athlete in New York City, which I think goes a long way in a world that has Aaron Judge. Even though Aaron Judge is he's the captain for the Yankees, man.
Yeah.
Like, that is insane sort of stardom to have, and Brunson rivals that. That's how good he's been in this city. So, man, I'll wait on the statue. Like, let's give it a couple years.
yeah,
Let's give it.
bro.
Look,
Let's give it. Let's hopefully when I'm old and gray and we could see him put that statue up. But he's been
if
amazing,
he
man.
win a championship, they're gonna rename MSG after him. Look, if he brings a championship, they will call that arena Jalen Brunson Stadium. And it
Madison
sounds
Square,
crazy because MSG is
MSG,
if he wins the
Madison Square
championship,
Brunson.
I
Yeah.
won't call it MSG no more. I'll be like, we're going to Brunson's house.
Brunson, yo, that has a nice ring to it.
It
Brunson's
does.
house
Though.
got a nice
Low-key
ring to it.
does,
I'd
though.
go to
I'm gonna be
that.
walking in with my brunnies, my Nike brunnies, and I'm gonna be like,
What
no,
ones?
Brunnies.
my brunnies. They're gonna be called the brunnies, the Brunson ones, the brunnies.
The Brunnies.
Hell yeah. Nah, I see it. I see the vision, bro. I see the vision. I'm with it.
All right, well, let's go ahead and I know Kaz got something else to get into right now, but first, before we get out of here, Walemania again, Thursday, April 4th, kicking off WrestleMania week in Philly at Franklin Music Hall. Y'all see the website to get a tick scrolling across the bottom of the screen right now. Any surprises that we can expect at Walemania?
um,
Evil
Trying
laugh.
to get the scoop over here, bro.
Anybody who's been to Wale Mania in the past 3 years knows the best time to get to Wale Mania is right when the doors open because we always kick it off with a bang. That's all I'm gonna say. I'll
Mm.
just say get there when the doors open because we're kicking it off with a bang.
That's what's up. Thursday, April 4th in Philly. Kaz, I appreciate you coming through, chopping it up with us for a minute. I'll definitely see you in Philly. I don't know if the bros are going or not, but I'm definitely coming to Philly. That's 110%. I will see you at Wale Mania, sir.
Looking forward to it, man. And thank you so much for having me. Thank you guys for supporting Wale Mania through all the channels and all that type of stuff. really means a lot, especially when it comes to our culture. So
Mhm.
really does mean a lot. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. Peace.
All right, y'all.
Thank you.